Welcome to Ask the Funeral Director with Mike Voyajakis. Brought to you by Voyage Funeral Home and Crematorium. Now, here's your host, Brad.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Ask the Funeral Director with Mike Voyajakis. I'm your host, Brad Wilder. Great to have you along this evening. We've got lots to get to. It's been an interesting week, especially for Mike. You're going to find out about, not only what's going on within the world of justice and criminals, but we'll also talk a little bit about some things that have come up COVID-wise from when the pandemic happened. We've got some tickets to talk about again because there's another fantastic event coming up at the RBC Convention Center that we happen to have a couple of free tickets to give away. And Mike is going to answer a ton of questions all about, the funeral business. So stay right there. It's all coming up next right here on Ask the Funeral Director.
At the Cork and Flame, we're always cooking and ready with the finest for all our customers any time of day or night. From breakfast brunch to lunch and dinner, steak and seafood to ribs and more. The Cork and Flame Fine Dining. Always fresh, with fabulous desserts and a narration of the urban landscape, plus a passion for quality food. Eat, drink, chill. Cork and Flame, 3106 Portage Avenue. There's no hurry, so sit back and relax. Come join Canada Nano Silver at the 31st Annual Winnipeg Wellness Expo, Saturday, February 15th from 10 a.m. till 6 p.m. and Sunday, February 16th from 10 till 5 at the RBC Convention Center, 3rd floor, Hall D. Complimentary tickets are available at wellnessexpo.com. Use promo code WW25300 or contact info@CanadaNanoSilver.com. We hope to see you there.
Welcome back to Ask the Funeral Director. You know, that was the event that Kevin from Nano Silver just so happened to be at this past weekend. I heard it went fantastic for him and Anna, and had a ton of great questions and a lot of great information that made it to some fantastic customers who spent their money on Canada Nano Silver and put out a really good product that, people get some health and wellness out of it. And that's exactly what that was all about. The next one, you got tickets for that. What's that about?
Well, that's the Winnipeg's Women's Show at RBC.
Yeah.
And that's at the Convention Center, and that's happening March 8th to 9th. And you can win tickets here on the show.
We'll tell them more about that later.
Number.
Yeah, we'll tell them more about that after then. Yeah. How about that? We'll do that in a bit. We'll get to some people that are online. Who got here first?
Brad, how you doing?
Good, buddy. How are you?
I'm glad to have you back. I heard you went on an airplane this week, and then I heard there was an airplane crash, and then I heard all these things about other airplanes. Yeah. And I'm thinking, oh my God, is Brad going to be back for the show on Wednesday night? Because if not, I'm going to have to do it all by myself.
That's right. You would have had to figure out how to turn on all this stuff, though. That would have
that's not going to happen.
That would have been a challenge.
So, how was your trip? I mean,
we played some hockey. We had a little bit of fun down there. Went to the Mall of America, saw that for the first time. Got back on the airplane yesterday to come home, and wow, it was a 5-hour tour.
I don't think people are probably feeling not too safe on air. There was another airplane crash again today.
There was another airplane crash again today. I don't know if it was Delta or not, but I flew Delta. And I heard about the Minneapolis to Toronto episode of flipped upside down. As Carl Krebs said to me online, he said, keep the shiny side up and the greasy side down, Brad. Our plane was grounded and halted. Actually, we were returned after de-icing right back to the gate, and then we were asked to deboard, and then they were going to do a quick little, check on everything, a security maintenance check, and then at the end of it all, put us back on the plane in about 20 minutes and said, everything's fine. It passed. There's nothing to worry about.
They have insurance.
Yeah, but I don't.
It's all okay.
I tell you, I was worried.
Glad to have you back in Winnipeg. Going to say hi to some people tonight. Gord, first one on the show tonight, he says that there's an airplane.
A Bombardier CRJ 700 series aircraft doing bench press on a snowy Toronto airport runway. Yes,
Steve's probably been drinking already before the show, because instead of good evening, he says goof.
Evening, everyone.
Kathy, tickle. She says hi. Debbie McKenzie.
Tabor, Alberta. Debbie and Heather Tews. Is it toes?
Twos? I'm not too sure.
Twos.
Debbie, hi guys, gals. Happy hump day.
From West K.
West K, she always says West K. And of course, the man we talked
loves
about,
her.
the man of the hour, Canada Nano Silver. Good evening, everyone. Kevin.
Hello, Kev.
Jeffrey, good evening, everyone, from Elm Creek.
Watching from Winnipeg, Elsie says. Hi,
Julie
Elsie.
Hall, you mean the land of injustice? Yes, the land of injustice. Angela, the Italian, is back on the show tonight from Toronto.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Terry Thiessen from Southern Alberta. Good to have you.
Debbie Kahn, good evening, everyone. Barb Green, watching from Southern Manitoba.
Yep.
Whole bunch of people on the show tonight and more joining us.
Rick
It's
and
going to be a
Sandy.
really good show today
Yeah.
and tonight and the whole day because we talked about COVID before. It's coming out everywhere. As a matter of fact, today I had a talk.
More
with a
COVID?
doctor. Had a,
What are you saying? More COVID?
Let me tell you something. If you have eggs, you could probably sell them on the stock market for huge money. They're killing all the chickens and all the birds, and bird flu is coming back like you've never seen before.
Well, it's never been here before.
But they're talking about it being here now like it's never been here before. Even though
Okay.
it's here now. And they're killing chickens, and the egg prices are going up, and eggs are going to be worth a fortune. So instead of going to the stock
Are you
market,
fear mongering
buying
or
stocks-
what?
No, it's true.
It's true.
Ask anyone. Eggs are going up in price. Put your eggs up on screen, and you'll see they're worth a fortune.
Really?
Had a talk with a doctor today, and the doctor said to me, "Mike, you were right. We have proof now that cancer has increased substantially since vaccination." Wonder what that's all about. And Donald Trump in
I
the
don't
United
know.
States of America says that they are going to stop vaccination in the United States altogether when it comes to the COVID vaccine with Pfizer and the other products. So some interesting stuff happening around the world. And you know when the big guy is talking about that, something serious is happening.
And that's a good thing. We
But it's
all
funny,
have
you drive by your local drugstores here in Winnipeg. Come and get your vaccine. It's waiting for you. Why aren't we boycotting those stores? Like, geez. Have we not killed enough people? Have we not done enough harm? Enough injuries? Maybe not. Maybe they still want more. We're going to go into our first video. This is Dr. Stanley. And you got to listen to what he's saying. Turn up your sound as loud as you can, because he's going to say some things that you want to hear, things we've been talking about, but things other doctors have not said. Are you ready?
Do any of the vaccines on the childhood schedule contain monkey kidney cells?
Well, the polio vaccine does.
Are you aware of any simian, monkey, viruses, meaning viruses that come from primates, that contaminated polio vaccines and infected individuals receiving the polio vaccine?
Yes, SV40,
Okay. And what does SV40 stand for?
simian virus 40.
Okay. And was it the 40th simian virus found? Is that why
Yes.
it's called? Are you aware of any virus from any animal other than simian or bovine that is in any vaccine?
Yes, there's a pig virus present in one of the rotavirus vaccines, circovirus.
Do any of the vaccines in the childhood vaccine schedule contain blood serum from calves or other bovines?
Calf serum is removed before the vaccine is used because you don't want to sensitize the vaccinee to cows.
What is this?
Vaccine excipient and media summary.
Can you go to Kinrix on the first page?
Yes.
DTaP IPV. Do you see in the third line down, it says calf serum? Do any vaccines on the childhood schedule contain embryonic guinea pig cell cultures?
Varicella vaccine was passaged in guinea pig cells.
Do you know if any vaccines contain cow's milk in it? Derived from
Oh,
cow's
well,
milk?
it could be, casein, for example, could be.
If there was casein in the vaccine, the child could become sensitized to that, correct?
Well, I'm not sure about that.
You're not sure anymore about that? Do any vaccines contain egg protein?
Oh, yes, influenza.
Do any vaccines contain gelatin from pigs?
Yes.
Do any vaccines in the childhood vaccine schedule contain human albumin?
Oh, yes.
What is human albumin?
Human albumin is part of human serum. It's part of the blood that is liquid.
None of it remains in the final product.
I don't believe so, no.
Yeah, because that could be problematic, right?
Well, it could be. I mean, if the individual is not healthy,
Or if maybe some of the human blood components bind to some of the aluminum and develop antibodies, self-antibodies, correct?
if they develop antibodies against a serum component, that would not be good.
Do any vaccines on the childhood vaccine schedule contain MRC5 human diploid cells?
Yes, rubella, varicella, hepatitis A,
What are MRC5 cells?
they are human fibroblast cell strain. They were created by taking fetal tissue and from a particular fetus that was aborted by maternal choice, and the cells, the so-called fibroblast cells, were cultivated.
Do any vaccines on the childhood vaccine schedule contain WI38 human diploid lung fibroblasts?
Well, they used to, but I don't think anything is made in those cells anymore.
If you could turn to page 3 for MMR and MMRV, do you see that within the ingredient list that lists WI38 human diploid lung fibroblasts?
Yes, I do see that.
Isn't it true that human DNA in vaccines is typically purposely fragmented?
Yes, and I would say mostly for theoretical reasons, doesn't want to put DNA into intact DNA into vaccines.
Are you familiar with insertional mutagenesis?
Yes.
Do you have any study to show that injecting millions of pieces of human DNA into babies and children is safe?
The only studies are all the safety studies that have been done on vaccines.
Wasn't the purpose of this study to help develop a human cell line or to support the use of human cell lines in the creation of vaccines?
The idea was to study the cell strains from fetuses to determine whether or not they could be used to make vaccines.
This study involved 74 fetuses,
76.
76. And these fetuses were all 3 months or older when aborted, correct?
Yes.
What organs did you harvest from these fetuses?
Well, I didn't personally harvest any, but a whole range of tissues were harvested by co-workers.
Okay. And these pieces were then cut up into little pieces, right?
Yes.
And they were cultured?
Yes.
Okay. Some of the pieces of the fetuses were pituitary gland that were chopped up into pieces to, okay, included the lung of the fetuses?
Yes.
Okay, included the skin,
Yes.
kidney,
Yes.
spleen,
Yes.
heart,
Yes.
and tongue.
I don't recall, but yeah, probably yes.
Are you aware that one of the objections to vaccination by the plaintiff in this case is the inclusion of aborted fetal tissue in the development of vaccines and the fact that it's actually part of the ingredients of vaccines?
Yeah, I'm aware of those objections. The Catholic Church has actually issued a document on that which says that individuals who need the vaccines should receive the vaccines regardless of the fact, and that I think it implies that I am the individual who will go to hell because of the use of aborted tissues, which I am glad to do.
Okay. Do you know if the mother is Catholic?
I have no idea.
Okay.
So she should consult her priest.
Do you believe that someone can...
So there you go. What a story, eh, Mike?
So you think, the reason I played that video, he was on the stand in 2018. And in 2018, he told people live on national TV, organs from fetuses being used. Imagine, lungs, the tongue, the heart, kidneys, in the vaccine. If that doesn't scare the heck out of you, I don't know what will. And I wonder what ever gave them the right to use fetus parts and cut them up like that. And how many fetuses did they need
Say
in order to do
nobody,
this?
nobody gave them any rights. They just do it at that point, don't they?
It's actually scary. And then we're wondering why so many people are getting sick around the world. We're going to go right into the next video if Brad has it ready. And this is another doctor speaking. And it's really interesting to find out all the stuff that's going on around the world. And there's more and more coming out. Randolph says, did he say he was going to hell?
Yes, he sure did.
Oh, my God, Linda says.
Okay, next video is all set to go. I have no idea. Do you want to set this up at all? Or you just
You did
wanna
not
roll
push
it?
the vaccine. You were told if you had pushed the vaccine for your patients, say you had pushed 6,000 people who were your patients at that time to get the COVID vaccine, what would have been the income to you?
Yeah, so Blue Cross Blue Shield had an incentive program to get doctors to administer these shots. And under that incentive program, if I had vaccinated the 6,000 patients that I treated for COVID, I would have made $1.5 million.
Holy. That's a little bit to say on that
Oh,
one.
just-
$1.5 million. Holy
For
cow.
6,000 patients,
Wow.
she would have got $1.5 million. And I bet you the average doctor, for sure, had vaccinated 6,000 or more people. Remember when they said follow the science? How about follow the money? Because the money tree was bouncing all over the place. But it's coming down. The cabal is coming down, and the truth is coming out, and it's happening all over the place. And it's really interesting because, as you know, I've been using my voice nice and loud and talking about the failing justice system and the crime that's taking place in our city. And people don't like it. As a matter of fact, yesterday I was advised to moderate my tone and refrain from addressing on certain issues. Well, Brad, you should refrain from talking about certain issues.
Yeah, good luck with that. Why do you choose to speak out publicly and feel it's affecting your business and your personal image? You must. And I guess, what do you think you get, any return for jeopardizing everything you've ever worked for? Like, what are you going to get out of this?
I speak out because my brother once had a voice,
Yeah.
and he was murdered, and they took his voice away. And now I'm going to be his voice and many other families' voices who've been failed by the justice system and crime in general. And we need to put a stop to it. And I'm going to keep on talking. And if it does damage to me, so be it. But the truth is going to come out, and I'm going to speak the truth. I'm going to fight as hard as I can until they make change to these rotating doors at the court system and stop allowing criminals back on the streets. And let's face it, we're becoming the victims. The innocent people are becoming the victims, and the people who've committed crimes over and over are out on the streets.
One thing I want to make mention of is there's guys like Mike, males and females, just like Mike, all across this country in small towns, medium-sized, and even large cities that are all fighting the same thing that Mike's fighting for, just to get some justice. Stop what's going on at a federal and a provincial level.
And we need more people to jump on that boat.
100%.
More people that are fighting against what's going on. It's not only in Winnipeg, it's in Manitoba, it's in Canada.
That's right.
And if we come together and unite as one, we are going to make a difference, and there will be change, because eventually the politicians are going to have to hear what we have to say. So
Yeah.
that's why I'm doing it.
The money needs to be spent properly from the top down so that we can start to see the rehabilitation centers help with everybody who is addicted to drugs in this country. And there's a lot going on, especially in British Columbia. If you know, it's a free-for-all out there. They have vending machines with heroin in them.
And it's happening. It's going to happen right here in Winnipeg, too. And I don't know what our leaders are thinking. I don't know how they're thinking. But instead of wasting funds on all kinds of things, why don't you waste funds on people?
Well, they need to be
That's what's
they need to be doged.
They need to be dosed, and we need that right here. And anyways, bottom line is I'm not going to stop speaking. I don't think it's going to hurt my business. I think people are on board with what I'm doing. A lot of people are fed up. Some people don't have voices. Some people don't want to speak out. But I'm glad to be your voice and be able to make as much noise as I possibly can. The more they tell me to be quiet, the louder I'm going to get.
Do you think it's possible, as the mayor, that you'll be able, or somebody would be able to go into the budgets and the planning and the way the money's spent and start to control it so that, things were getting attention that need attention, from healthcare to our roads to our justice system. I mean, and obviously our rehabilitation system. There's mental health issues far and wide, all because of, well, the last 4 years, which our government forced down our throats.
I think what you need is a mayor who's going to be able to communicate with the premier and come up with a plan and put the people first and realize that we have a mental health issue problem, that we have a severe drug, a violent problem, a gang problem, and we need to come together and work in partnerships and stop fighting with
Exactly.
each other and make it about the people and realize that we need to not open up Portage in Maine and spend money on foolish things when we could be taking that money and saving people's lives and souls. And that's what's important. You know, it's the younger generation we worry about. They're the future. And if we don't stand up, I think about this all the time. My son or your grandkids in the future, when they look at you and they say, hey, Dad, how come you didn't stand up? How come you didn't stand up for us and try to make change in this world? Why were you just quiet? Why didn't you fight against what they were trying to do and what we have to live with
Exactly.
today? And that's why we need to do this.
Yep.
We're getting older. Eventually, we won't be here anymore, but our grandkids and children will be. And we need to use our voices, and that's why we have voices, to be loud and clear about what's going on and what's not going right, and not just sit there and pretend things aren't happening. That's just wrong. And the more we sit there and pretend, well, it's just a game, nothing's happening, everything's going to be okay, it's not.
It's far from it. Very far from it. We've got a lot of work to do.
We do. But I want to also mention another thing. And if you could do me a favor, because my mom, hey, Mom, watches the show every week.
Hi, Helen.
Hey, Mom, yes, she...
I cut the back of my hair, Helen, just because you said get her trimmed off. I did it.
My
I'm
mom
just
gets
letting you
on our case, both of us, when we're working together, and is setting us straight. But last night I got a call, and it's been devastating for my mom. I mean, going through a lot
What
of
happened?
things. And her little puppy passed away.
Oh.
So little Bella passed away yesterday. So if you could send some hearts
Bella.
out to my mom for her little puppy that passed away. So I went and picked up little Bella this morning. And what's really odd is 15 years ago, I brought Bella to the house from my mom and dad. And now, 15 years later, I went and took Bella away
Right.
and made her final arrangements to lay her to rest. But yeah, Mom, we love you, and stay strong. And little Bella here's what broke my heart today. So I'm at the door, and my mom is, passing me a little Bella, and she had her little toys in the box. And this is faith. This is what I talk about when I say faith. My mom says, this is the ball that your brother Kyriakis used to throw for Bella all the time. And these are her toys that she played with all the time. And my mom said, take the ball and make sure that it goes with Bella so Kyriakis could throw the ball with Bella again on the other side. Now that's faith.
Absolutely, that is.
When you can think about it and actually mean it, it's safe. So, Mom, we're thinking about you, and we're here for you if you need anything. So, yeah. What
Wow.
A day. And you know what?
Wow.
It's when you have a puppy, it's part of your family.
100% it is.
For people that have fur babies, I guess you can call them, those animals become part of our family, and we treat them like our children, and we love them, and we take care of them, and they give us a lot of love in return. And there's nothing more comforting than a dog coming and cuddling up to you. And unconditional love. You can yell at it, you can spank it, you can do whatever you want. The dog still loves you at the end of the day. So, yeah, terrible loss for my mom, and I hope things get better in our lives. So back to the justice system. We need you on board. We need you to fight. We need to make change, and we are going to make the future a lot brighter for your children and grandchildren, and for you. It's very unfair that the elderly people can't walk in their own neighborhoods at night. Isn't that heartbreaking, Brad? And
100%.
that's the kind of things we need to change. We're going to go back to this next story now, because this story is also talking about exactly what I'm talking about over and over again. It's about crime. It's about somebody sticking up for their business and then getting beaten up for their business.
More anger and frustration in Duncan over BC's so-called catch-and-release justice system.
A well-known store owner was badly beaten trying to stop shoplifters, and the suspects were back on the street just hours later. Kristen Robinson reports.
I just want to tap it again.
Jung-Woo Kim holding the fort at the family store as his father recovers from a beating he received after confronting two shoplifting suspects. The pair, released from custody, less than 12 hours after being arrested.
It's pretty disappointing that it's, he's out in there again. Very disappointed in how the system is handling this right now.
Kim says safety concerns are increasing in Duncan, where theft is a regular occurrence at Hank's Handy Mart.
Every year it gets worse and worse, every month, every week.
Late Tuesday, Kim says 2 people came in, loaded up on groceries, and left without paying.
The thieves that were here stole a bunch of groceries, ran off, and then my dad chased them after, and then he got beat up pretty quickly after getting into a scuffle with them. He had a broken nose, severe concussion. He had like bloodied hands, bruised ribs, a few of the broken teeth as well, front teeth.
Darnell Sterling Grant, who turns 23 this year, and Serenity Hooft, 22, are charged with robbery and assault causing bodily harm. Both were arrested Wednesday morning and released by the courts that evening.
It absolutely blows my mind that we are knowingly putting someone who is that volatile back out into our little town.
That person is a danger to the public. So why are they apprehended and released the very next day?
Grant and Hooft are due in court March 4th. Kim says his father is a tough guy who's just trying to earn a living.
Protecting the business, protecting the family, that's what he does. So anything to do that, he'll do anything for it.
Kristen Robinson, Global News.
Yeah, you're not supposed to go take on the criminals, though. It doesn't make sense over some groceries.
I want to thank my brother Peter for sending me that video and making me aware of it. But this is a perfect example. See, I'm talking about this in Manitoba and making a lot of noise about it, but it's happening everywhere in Canada. Store owners are afraid to open up their stores. They want to protect the food that they have so they can make a living. Poor guy is there just trying to make a living, just like my brother Kyriakis was.
Yeah.
And then he goes outside to defend himself and the groceries and the things that they took from him, and he gets a beating, broken nose, concussion, and now he's got to live for that. And then how does a judge just release a person like that? A violent act, beating up a guy and causing all these harmful damages to his body, and the judge releases both of them? What's wrong with this world? What's wrong with the justice system? I don't get it, and that's why we need to stand up. And more businesses are closing down. More businesses are locking their doors. It's hard enough to run a business in the province of Manitoba, especially in the city of Winnipeg. And now you have the concern of the catch and release program, which is escalating. This is what's causing all this damage in the city. They catch these criminals, they put them in jail, they release them, they're back out in the street doing the same thing again. I'm not blaming the police officers or the firefighters or the paramedics. I'm blaming the system. Systems and procedures need to change, especially when it comes to the catch and release program. And that's why we need to say enough's enough.
We're all going to die one day. In 100 years, none of this will matter. The things we stress about today will be forgotten. Stop stressing about minor inconveniences and don't let small setbacks ruin your day. Your car breaks down. It's just a temporary problem. You're late for a meeting. Life goes on. We often worry about things that won't matter in the long run. A bad day at work, an argument with a friend, a missed deadline. These are all fleeting moments. Life is far too short for unnecessary worries. Focus on what truly matters. Cherish your loved ones and live your life to the fullest. Don't get caught up in material possessions. Remember eternity. Take risks and embrace opportunities. Appreciate the simple joys in life. And remember, we're all just passing through on this earth. We have content that helps you become 1% better each day. If you're willing, just take a look. Have a good life, my friend. Hope to see you again.
Wow, that was
We're all
touching video. There is lots of sound.
Yeah, there is lots
Al
of sound. We didn't have any
Al
problem.
Bueller knows. He's like on top of things. He knows. He's a carpenter. There's sound.
Yeah, there is lots of sound.
You know, that is a good reminder to not worry about things. Just let things go by. Sometimes the worst thing you could do is carry things in your heart that break your heart and rip you apart, because sometimes stress will eat away with you like cancer. It's the same thing. So let go of things, enjoy life, live each day as if it's your last day on earth, care for each other, love each other, and don't stress about the little things in life. You know, it's sad to say, but it's true.
Inflation will go away.
Yeah,
as soon as we
sometimes
get a
the
new prime minister.
Sometimes the happiest people that I see, believe it or not, walking into the funeral home are the people that have nothing. They walk in holding hands, and they have each other. And that's all that matters. They don't come in a car, they take a bus, or they walk, but they have each other. And sometimes having each other is the greatest love that you could ever have, because that's all you need. They don't need material things. They don't need to worry about stress and all the other things people worry about. They just take care of one another. And when you lose one of those people, that's when your heart is truly broken.
Absolutely.
So, replying to some people on here, what's this? You like reading? Kim says a young girl was killed in Portersville Prairie because the justice system let a repeat offender repeatedly out. She was an outstanding, important citizen to the community. He was driving a stolen vehicle, impaired, she died. That's a perfect example. And more people are talking about this kind of stuff, and they're finally starting to realize that the justice system is failing us and continuing to fail us. And even as we're making noise, nothing's changed. I see something from Jim on there saying, do you cremate pets, Mike? Actually, we will be cremating pets. We've put an addition onto our crematorium. We've bought another retort, which is a crematorium, and we're going to be doing pets out of that. So we will be able to take care of your whole family, including your friendly neighborhood pets. So that's a good thing. Do we have another video, or are we getting into our first?
That's it.
Sound up. Brad, please.
It's cranked up, you guys. It's cranked up. I don't understand. I mean, I've got everything maxed out.
Dan Ross is like, turn up the sound.
I don't know. These comments come in a little bit late, so some of it's already been fine. The guy in the voice in the video.
Yeah, now the sound is low. Al Bueller's criticizing us everywhere today. Let's get into our first question.
No, we'll have to hold on. Tell him another story.
Oh, tell you another story. Well, we could talk about. I could talk about many things when it comes to sad stories, as I have many of them from what I have to deal with in the funeral home on the average day, week, month, and there's stories that are truly heartbreaking as families come in and out of the funeral home. Okay, people say the sound is now good, really good. So, Brad, we've taken care of the issue. Oh, man, it's been quite a week at the Cork and Flame, and we're going to be doing something new right away we're working on, and it's going to be called a roundtable at the Cork and Flame every Tuesday night, presented to you by the Winnipeg Sun. Isn't that it, Brad? Spilt the beans a little bit soon, but we're working on that, and we're looking forward to that happening in the near future. Maybe we'll give away one of these tickets as Brad's working his way back here. So if you want a ticket to the Women's Show, it's the Winnipeg Women's Show. It's March 8th to 9th, 2025. And we have 2 tickets to give away. If you could guess a number, I got the number written down already. We will give you these 2 tickets. You could pick them up at maybe we'll do it at the Cork and Flame this time. You could pick up the tickets at the Cork and Flame or Voyage Funeral Home. Everyone's saying the sound is good now, Brad.
All right, then.
Okay, so let's start guessing some numbers. I guess you need to be a lady or a guy who wants to give away these tickets to his wife. Or I guess guys can go to the show, too. It's the Winnipeg Women's Show, but all good. Ticket number 5 is wrong. 13 is also wrong. As you're doing numbers on there, we are going to start answering questions for Ask the Funeral Director. 66 is wrong. 25 is wrong.
Can't you guys just keep going? People are going to keep typing.
Nikki Sunshine, Wendy Gamble. Number 14, Terry Good, not so good, wrong number. Gemma, number 50. It's 1 to 100. Al Bueller, 44. Maria, 67. Not right. Uh-oh, Debbie's got it. Number 69.
Debbie Lamoureux.
And I have it written down here, number 69. So congratulations. Your lucky number today, number 69. So you could tell us where you want to pick up those tickets on the screen, and we'll have them ready for you, either at the Cork and Flame or at Voyage Funeral Home on Henderson and Hespeler. So our lucky winner, number 69. All right, Brad.
All right, here comes question number 1 tonight. What's the
457?
What's the most common fear people have about death and dying, and how would you help ease it? Laverne needs to know.
So, Laverne, that's a good question. The common fear people have about death and dying is not being ready to die, worrying about their families and their loved ones and how they're going to make it without them, how life is going to be without dad or mom, who's going to raise the kids, who's going to pay the bills. There's a lot of things that goes on in your mind when you're told by the doctor that you have a chance of passing away, or worse than that, when a doctor says to you, you have 3 months to live. And you can only imagine lying in your hospital bed and being told that very terrible news, and then having to put everything together in your mind on how it's going to work and who's going to be taking care of loved ones. So, of course, the most important thing to do there is have a will in place and your power of attorney and directive to doctors. And then, of course, maybe filling out a wishes and memories book. Terrible thing to think about. And how do you bring peace to those families? You kind of guide them. You kind of guide them on what they should do next, how they should prepare for death, maybe make peace with their higher power. Probably one of the most important things you need to do. Make peace with yourself, make peace with your family, but most of all, make peace with your higher power. And I think that kind of prepares you when you make peace with your higher power to move on, not to die, but just to move on to the next world where we go. To be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. That's what the Bible says.
Okay, how do different religions and cultures approach death, and can we learn from them? Shannon wants to know.
So it's kind of interesting because every time I go to another church, and Brad, you've been with me lately, every time you go to another church, or you do, a Catholic service or an Orthodox service or, a Pentecostal service, every service is different, and you'll learn a lot. And different cultures, different people do things in different ways. So there's so much to learn and so much you can pass on to others when you're dealing with so many different cultures, so many different funerals, so many different beliefs. And once you start dealing with different cultures, you start to learn what their beliefs are and what their traditions are. And you try to follow their beliefs and their traditions to the best of your ability. And not all families are the same. So sometimes you get families from the same cultures that have different beliefs and different traditions. So you could definitely pass that on to others when they come to the funeral home and want to know, how can we do this? How can we make it okay? How can we make it perfect?
What role does hospice care play, and how does it help in a death experience, Mike?
So hospice care is so important. And my niece Nicole works at a hospice care.
So what is it? What does hospice
so basically
mean?
It's end of life.
Okay.
So when you're in hospice care, it's end of life, and there's Grace Hospice, for example. There's so many beautiful hospice places that, and the people there are so amazing because they are working with end of life. They're taking that person and taking care of them and showing them all the love in the world and compassion and care, and it's end of life. And I can only imagine being a nurse or somebody that works in hospice care, how hard it is to do your job and how hard it is to lose somebody that you kind of make friends with because they're there for a bit and then all of a sudden they're gone. So I look at my brother's daughter, Nick's daughter, Nicole, and I go, wow, like what an amazing job that you have to be able to work in end of life. And it's almost the same as a nurse working at Children's Hospital and having to work with children all the time and sick children coming in and sometimes children that pass away. How hard would it be for a mom that has children to actually work at Children's Hospital? Just like it would be hard for a nurse or a doctor that has a mother and father who's, getting older in age and then seeing people die every day in hospice. And hospice, I think, is the most amazing thing that's ever happened to the death care industry, where they have, a peaceful place to go with lots of love. Even if you don't have family, they become your family.
Awesome. It's something that everybody has to face at some point, right?
It's a door we all have to cross. Sometimes it's sooner, sometimes it's later. But death is something that we're all going to go through.
So how can someone emotionally and physically prepare for their own death through your experience.
I think emotionally preparing for death is probably one of the hardest things you have to do. I would hate to be in those shoes, but a doctor saying to you, Brad, you have 3 months to live. How do you emotionally even walk out of that appointment, with that news, and then thinking about everything that you got to think about and going 3 months? And then what do you want to do with those 3 months? And how do you want to live the end of your life? And how do you physically and mentally prepare for it? Again, I think you need to make peace with your higher power to believe that there's life after death.
Is it still suicide if you know you're going to die?
If you know you're going to die, it's not suicide. If you know you're going to die, it's not suicide if you die on your own. I think it's suicide if you take your life. For these people.
There's people who wander off and do their thing. They're like a cat. They don't have any interest in staying in the same spot to die. They don't want a burden. They don't want to be involved. They don't want to hinder anybody, so they leave.
Homes, right?
Well, no, I'm talking about people who are in care homes who get up and walk out and split from the care home and end up dead.
I think those people are confused. With Alzheimer's and dementia and all the things that are happening in this world, people walk out. I don't think anybody really wants to walk out of a place that they're being cared for. And I think once you hit a certain age and you kind of start losing your memory.
I don't know that I want to stick around that place and wait for that day. I think I'd want to go out and just do it on my terms.
You know what? I see a lot of people die in care homes and a lot of home deaths. And it seems like a majority of the people want, the final thing you want in your life is family. You want to be surrounded by family. You want to be surrounded by love, share stories, see faces that you recognize. And I think that's what makes a death peaceful. That's what prepares you for death, is having family around. And I think for those that have that wild side, that just want to take off and die on their own, sure, there's people like that. So I guess it depends on how you want to die. There's some people taking the MAID program. There's some people, committing suicide. And there's other people that die naturally. And I think if I was to die, I would just want to die naturally. And when my time comes, it's time to go.
Not to make light of dying, but Gymnasium says if you only had 3 months to live, go rob a bank, you'll be out the next day. I mean, that's not of this justice system.
Well, listen, that's how the criminals are thinking now.
We're giving no solid advice here to anybody about being a criminal at all.
Listen, we already know there's no consequences.
Right.
So if you have 3 months to live, well, what are they going to do to you? Attend your funeral and take your casket away?
This is where they came to you yesterday and said, "Can you just tone down the rhetoric a bit, there, Mike?"
I think the guy who was talking to me was trying to give me, good advice.
Yeah.
Hey, Mike, just calm down.
Yeah.
All this stuff will go away.
It didn't come out like that, did it?
Anymore. It didn't come out like that. But I mean,
big surprise.
You're going to tell me to shut up? No.
You got the wrong guy.
I'm just beginning.
I can't tell him to shut up.
I got a lot of people out there that are looking for a voice and don't have a platform. And that's the sad thing. Brad, you lose a loved one, or your dad gets beaten up protecting his business, or all the things that are happening in the world, and you don't have a voice. And this kind of stuff just gets swept under the carpet. Unless the news picks it up or something happens, there's so many people that lose loved ones and can't say how they feel.
That's true.
And they're just built with anger and frustration, and then they start to hate the system.
I don't always like getting up like this, but I'm just going to make sure that everybody understands one thing. There is a way to turn the microphone towards you so that people could actually
They're not complaining about my microphone. They're complaining about your microphone.
They're not complaining about my microphone.
Whose microphone are you guys complaining about?
No, they're complaining about the overall sound level, but your sound level is probably low because your microphone is not towards you, and I don't understand.
I sound good.
Now you do.
Now I'm like the good guy talking, It's good. Everything is okay.
No, Al Bueller, he does not cremate pets. That's not part of the program at this point. He's talked about getting a machine. Might happen one day soon, but we're not there yet. Susan wants to know, how can someone emotionally and physically prepare for their own death? Oh, we did that one, through your experience. Sorry. Okay, question 5 now, moving on. What are the most common of mistakes people make when planning a funeral? Curious George wants to know. Common mistakes.
A common mistake is coming to the funeral home and not knowing what you want to do, and then being taken advantage of. Common mistake is jumping into something before you make a wise choice, before you really think about it. I always tell families, if you don't know if you want to have a memorial service, think about it. The good thing about cremation is it's time sensitive. It's not time sensitive. So you can do the cremation, and then you could think about if you want to have a memorial service. Think about what kind of service you want to have. It's not time sensitive where you're doing a traditional burial and you've got to make decisions right now. We have 4 days or 5 days to bury your loved one, and you get slaughtered with a whole bunch of decisions that you need to make in a very, very short period of time. So I think preparing for death is getting things ready, from cemetery property to making sure that you talk to your family about what your final wishes are. Because the worst thing that happens is people don't know what your mom and dad's wishes are because they've never talked about it. It's a taboo thing to talk about. It's always been that way. And if you don't know, that's when problems arise. That's when people take advantage of you. That's when you're uncertain, and in your heart you're kind of going, oh, what did I do? Did I make the wrong decision? Is this what mom would have wanted? Is this what dad would have wanted? I don't know. I never talked to them about it. And then it breaks your heart, and that's where you get taken advantage of. So do yourself a favor. Talk about death with your family. Have an open discussion about it. And, as much as you don't want to talk about it, talk to your kids about what your final wishes are. I know some kids out there will go, no, Dad, you're never going to die. I don't want to hear that. You're going to be with us forever. It's not the way it works.
Hey, I just point this out. Lori Dobbins says, sound is much better. Thanks, Brad. Must be because I turned your mic towards you. Interesting. He moves things around when he gets here at the beginning of the night.
Blah, blah, blah.
Okay, what do you say to someone or not say to someone who's lost a loved one? Kathy, how about let's start with what you don't say.
I hate when I hear this, and I hear this all the time in the funeral home. People come up to families and they say, I'm sorry. Well, what are you sorry about? If you don't know the person really well, what are you really sorry about? Or people say, oh, I know what you're going through. Oh, it was meant to be. Oh, the person's in a better place. Why don't you just offer your condolences by saying, my deepest, sincerest condolences from my heart, and say, if there's anything I could do for your family, I'll be there for you. Or maybe drop off a meal at the house to be kind, or send some flowers. But don't say things like, I know what it's like, or they're in a better place, or I'm so sorry. And you hear that all the time. And I remember at a funeral one time, the wife whose husband passed away, she said, I'm so sorry. And she said, well, what are you sorry about? And she had a point. Like, what are you sorry about? So just my deepest condolences, and being caring and compassionate goes a long way when you can drop off flowers, we can drop off a meal, when you can send a card, a phone call, how's everything going? And, do you need anyone to talk to? And the most important thing is, don't leave people alone during death. And our family went through this. I told my mom this was going to happen, and I want to share it with you. I told my mom, I said, Mom, this happens all the time. During a funeral, you're going to get 1 million people saying to you, Helen, I'm going to come and be with you. I'll take you out for coffee. We'll spend time together. My heart is broken for you. And then a week passes by, and the phone calls become less and less. And 2 weeks pass by, and everyone forgets about it.
It's done.
It's done.
Yeah.
And it's so wrong.
I've seen
because
that.
Death is something you go through, and you go through it as a community. And a community doesn't forget. A community doesn't put somebody on hold. And that's where we've lost our compassion in our hearts, by not continuing to care about a family member. And when you see somebody's alone, somebody who's lost a husband or wife, and all of a sudden the wife is alone, and she's lonely and she has nobody, those are the people we need to care for. Those are the people we need to hold in our arms and hug and love, and show that humanity cares.
So you only live once, you only die once, nothing you should be saying, eh? I didn't bring that up. Somebody in the chat said
God.
that. I'm just
Well,
trying
Brad,
to lighten
don't
the
worry about
mood.
it. You only die once, buddy.
I know,
And you know
eh?
what, Brad? You only live once. I mean, I did it my way.
You're
Frank
supposed to
Sinatra.
live every day, remember? Every day they live.
I say live every day as if it's the last day. And I say this all the time. Today's a gift and tomorrow's never promised. You walk out that door and you never know if you're going to see that person
Are we
again.
over? Is this show over tonight? I think we're at the end already.
No.
Well, gee whiz. That was like the ending of the show right there you're spewing off. All right, so what should people consider when deciding open or
Wait a sec.
close?
Important thing happening here.
Uh-oh. That's the city telling you to be quiet? Some more? No?
Sharon sent me a message.
All right. What should people consider when deciding open or close casket?
So this happens all the time when people ask, well, should I have the casket open or closed? That's a real a very personal decision. So a lot of times what we do at the funeral home is we say, why don't you come in prior to anybody coming here, an hour before, and spend some time alone with your loved one. And if you feel comfortable with the way they look, if we can make changes to make the person look more presentable, do you want the casket open? Do you want the casket closed? But most of all, the most important thing is, what was your family's wishes? What was your loved one's wishes? Did they want an open casket, or did they want a closed casket? And a lot of families say, and I hear this over and over again, if you want to come and see me while I'm alive. Because when I'm dead, I'm gone. And a lot of people say that. So why are we visiting people at funerals when you don't get a chance to talk to that person, you don't get a chance to say goodbye? We have phones these days, computers, all kinds of things to stay in touch.
Video conferencing, Zoom meetings.
What's this say? Mary Lou says something. You want to read it, Brad?
FaceTime. This man passed away. I thought a lot of who was a heating service for our building at work. I touched his closed casket and said to his wife, "You had it all." She said, "Oh, everyone has their struggles." What's the difference between cremation and traditional burial or green burial?
Huge difference on all three. Of course, cremation is fire, high heat. A traditional burial is considered an earth burial, where you place a casket into the ground. And a lot of people are talking about green burials, but not so easy to do, because not so many cemeteries are on board with that because of the lack of money they make. A green burial is where you use everything green, and you place the person in the ground, sometimes in a shroud, sometimes in a box that's biodegradable, and no vaults, nothing fancy. It's just a green burial. And that's what a lot of people want these days, but a lot of cemeteries aren't giving you that. But I hear that the City of Winnipeg cemeteries in Winnipeg, that's St. Vital Cemetery, Transcona Cemetery, and Brookside, soon are going to allow green burials.
All right. Why do funerals matter, and how do they help the grieving process? Danielle wants to know.
Hey, Randolph says, replying to Jeff, that's insensitive and rude, and as far as I'm concerned, got to go back and find that one. Why do funerals matter? Funerals matter because it's important to be at a funeral service. And we experienced this during COVID when we were doing live streams, and the service was not personalized at all. Family may have been in the chapel, but nobody else was there. And it didn't seem like a funeral service. It felt empty. It felt like there was no love. It felt like there was no care, no compassion. When you're at a funeral service, it's an emotional time. It makes you sit in the pews or in the chairs and think about your mortality. It gives you a chance to hug the family and tell them that you love them and that you'll be there for them, and have lunch with them, have coffee with them. And the presence of people matters. Seeing loved ones, seeing family, seeing friends, seeing people you hadn't seen for many years all of a sudden show up. And that's something special. And having funeral services allows you to have closure and to move on and heal. And a lot of times when you don't have closure, it's impossible to heal. So having a funeral service, and a lot of people say, well, you just say that because, you're a funeral director and you want to make money. Wrong. That's not why you should have funeral services. You can have funeral services, in a restaurant. You can have it in your backyard. You can have them at the lake, on the golf course. You can have a funeral service wherever you want. A funeral service is a gathering of friends talking about that loved one's life, sharing pictures, sharing memories. And that's what makes a gathering special, is talking about that person's life and celebrating the life that that person lived and the years that we had them with us. So Kyriakis, 51 years. We celebrate those 51 years we had with Kyriakis. We look at the pictures and we hold those memories in our heart forever, memories that nobody can ever take away. And that's what funeral services do. They enable that memory to be a community, where community comes and grieves together. And when a community comes and grieves together, a lot of love is in that room and the family feels it. And to me, that is so important. So sometimes having a funeral service and inviting people matters.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Candace wants to know, how can families ensure they don't get taken advantage of financially while making funeral arrangements?
So this is something you need to do before you go to a funeral home, is do your research. Call 3 or 4 funeral homes, or you will be taken advantage of. I talk about this all the time. a salesperson versus a funeral director. Salespeople are there to sell. They're high-paid sales commission people who know how to get to your pocket, who know how to tug your heartstrings, and know how to sell you as much as they could sell you without any guilt whatsoever because they're on commission. You walk into the wrong funeral home, you'll be there for 2 to 3 hours just making final arrangements. You come to a place like Voyage Funeral Home, care, compassion, understanding. You're dealing with a family-owned funeral home. We have no salespeople. You're dealing with a licensed funeral director every time you come into the funeral home. And licensed funeral directors, their purpose is not to sell. Their purpose is to help, guide, and protect the family. And those are the kinds of things you need to look out for, because you hear the story over and over again, and I'm sure you've heard it from family and friends. I went to the funeral home and paid $15,000 or $16,000 for a traditional burial. I paid $7,500, $6,500 for a simple cremation. Those are people who, sometimes I call it the traditional rut, it's called. The traditional rut is, well, grandma went to X funeral home, grandpa went to X funeral home, so we need to go to that same funeral home. And that's when you get taken advantage of. So there's nothing wrong with shopping around. There's nothing wrong with using an alternative funeral home to the one grandma and grandpa used or mom and dad used. It's about affordability and service and getting value for your money. And that's the bottom line, and that's what you need to look for before you walk into a funeral home and get taken advantage of.
Well, as we get to our last couple of questions tonight, Mike, how do you feel COVID changed funeral services in general? Was there a change in things?
I think COVID has changed the world, and the world will never be the same after COVID and what they did to us. The lockdowns, the mental illness, the drugs, the violence. But in funeral service, what it did is it made it not important to have a funeral service anymore. There was no closure. There was no funeral services. There was simple cremation. Off the person went, and there was nothing. And there was video, of funerals taking place. But what happened is the personal part of a funeral service disappeared. The family and friends coming to a funeral service. And now what we're seeing is a couple years later, funeral services are smaller and smaller. And it seems like COVID has kind of pushed funeral services aside, pushed death aside, and made death not important. And that's really sad. There's so much said when a minister or a friend gets up and talks about a person's life and talks about, verses from the Bible and talks about life after death and going to a burial ground and having a pastor or a friend talk there. There's something said to have that happen. And a lot of families completely bypass that. And we were told in many cases it was simple cremation. There was nothing else. 5 people at a funeral service. So I think those 2 years really changed things. And Linda says, I think someone has a farewell party prior to their passing is a great idea. And that's the living funeral. And next week, we're going to play a video of a living funeral. And it's crazy. You got to see what this family did for a living funeral. And yes, the person was there at their funeral and kind of popped themselves out of a casket and was part of that party. And it was a really cool thing to see. And for some people, it's just not the way it should be. Some people are stuck on the traditional route of doing things the way things were always done, and they don't want to move from that. Heather says, Susan says, I agree, Mike. The world has changed. It 100% has. And Heather says, the Goldens buried their mom and brother on their farm property. Interesting. So you just can't bury people wherever you want. There's the Cemeteries Act that tells you where you could bury somebody and how you could bury somebody and where a burial permit is needed and that kind of stuff.
All right, final question of the night tonight, Mike. It says, if you were to pass away today as a funeral director, would you mind sharing your final wishes? And do you have a will? Have you made your final arrangements? And do you have a cemetery property, Mike?
Oh, wow. That's a real...
Are you prepared is the question. Are you prepared?
So you know what? I am prepared. And I've put a lot of thought into, if I pass away, what do I want? I guess this is going to be a living video of what I want. Because of, the Greek Orthodox culture, traditional burial is a big thing. And my dad was buried, my brother was buried. And I'd want to be buried. I'd want to be in a casket in the ground. And I'd want to have a service at the... at the Greek Orthodox Church, which is tradition. I'd want family and friends to be there. I'd want to have a reception. There would be more of a party. I know which cemetery I want. Have I made cemetery arrangements? No. But, since my brother's passed away, it's been a big thing on my mind. Oh my God, I got to get cemetery arrangements into place. I got to get something for me and Sharon, and I talked to my brothers about that. You guys got to get cemetery arrangements in place. It takes the burden off your children. It really does. And it's been a burden on my mind lately just to get that out of the way. Do I have a will? Yes. It's really important to have a will. And without a will, your family's pretty much out of luck. So I put a lot of thought into what I want. And I've talked to Sharon about what she wants, and we should all talk to our loved ones about what they want. The question is, are you prepared? Are you ready to pass away if that should happen to you or a family member today? That's the question. We thank you for joining us for another edition of Ask the Funeral Director. We love you. Thank you for joining us on the show. Please like, share, and follow the show. Thanks, Brad. Awesome guy. Take care of yourselves and each other. God bless you and your families.
Good night, everybody.